Okay, let's see. So welcome to, oh my gosh, can you believe, guys, we're on the fourth masterclass. Wow. I definitely could be doing more to talk about these masterclasses because I think they are awesome, but because there's recordings, I am still going to talk about them. But just wanted to say welcome. Today, we are looking at the destroyer money archetype and how it evolves into the renovator. So, like I said, this is my money archetype. It is my primary archetype, and I absolutely love it, right? Like, I think it's a very, very, I don't know, like it's not like the fixer, right? Where obviously fixers never go broke, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we're not that organized. And this is a very, very messy archetype, but I love it regardless. So, if you've just joined, my name is Vangile. I help mainly women of color heal generational money patterns so they can unlock new levels of success and build generational wealth. And I love working with mainly women who are highly educated, high earners, and are struggling to save money, right, or invest money, and are also entrepreneurs earning a lot of money. And also women that are highly educated, are incredible entrepreneurs, but they're struggling to monetize their businesses or find themselves stuck at a particular money set point. They just feel like they can't move beyond a particular money set point. So, today's focus is based on my book. So if you're new to the masterclasses, this is the book. I hope you guys can see because I cannot see myself on camera, just see the PowerPoint presentation, right? What's your money personality? And today we are focused on chapter, oh my gosh. Sorry, guys. Like, I literally wrote chapter 8 and wrote the sweet one, and chapter 14, the sweet one becomes the bounded one. That is not true. Chapter 8, oh, yeah, this is what I get. I knew I should have like double checked it before I left to go get stuff at the shop. Chapter 8 is actually the destroyer, and chapter 14 is the destroyer becomes the renovator. My bad, right? But I do have the numbers right because when I was busy doing this, my mind was in the right place except for what I typed out. I think it's also because this is the one slide, the uh, second and third slides, I just copy and paste from the previous presentation, and now I'm paying for it, right? So to start off, what is the destroyer? This destroyer reveals and may actually display all the hidden toxic behavior in the family, often in a violent and unpleasant manner. Where the sweet one, which we talked about last week, right? Where the sweet one tries to be perfect in order to get love, the destroyer will rebel and force their parents to see themselves and to see them. They will not allow their parents to check out and will behave in a way that forces them to pay attention. So, the destroyer, before I even go into just a recap of the money archetypes, the destroyer is that archetype that will literally act out. And here's the thing, what I found very, very interesting as I started to do more and more of this work and research, a lot of this book, people will ask me, how did you get the archetypes? They kind of downloaded into me, and their role in the family also got like downloaded into me. And I have now found out, this is so not part of the presentation, but I found out recently that there is an MIT course on neuroscience that literally talks about downloads from the ether and the ancestral plane as like a legit thing. Like research is proving that that's actually a thing that happens. So that's actually kind of nice. And I guess it's kind of interesting that it's MIT that's pushing that research. Oh, what a time to be alive, guys. What a time to be alive, where spiritual knowledge and indigenous knowledge is a thing now like that. we can start to see it as legitimate, that actually downloading things is real. But anyway, the destroyer archetype is that child. You will know them from a very young age. They're seen as wanting as attention seekers sometimes. They are seen as just not being able to get along.
I did it. I made it easy for you.
Hello? I don't know who's talking. Okay, I think everyone's muted. Thanks. So they will force you to focus on them, right? So where the sweet one, that child, will ask you, will almost co-parent with you. The sweet one and the fixer in the family, those children will co-parent with you. They will take care, if they are the eldest, they will take care of the younger siblings. They will help with those siblings, all of that. The destroyer may do that to a point. And then one day they'll just be like, F it, you're not my child, please, parents, take over this. So they find, a lot of people find the destroyer archetype difficult. And I think that's the best way to describe the destroyer. The fixer, everybody understands them because they are the breadwinners. They can be seen as rude, as bullies, etc. But the destroyer archetype is just seen as difficult. They can't seem to fit in with the family. They seem to have issues, all of that, right? Growing up, my mother would always say to me, you just like to make yourself complicated. And I was like, actually, I don't see myself as complicated. I just see myself as someone who's pointing out things within the family that are definitely wrong, right? And here's one thing to realize is, if you do not have a sweet one or a very strong, if you have a lot of destroyers in your family, you need a very, very strong fixer to counter that. The reason is that the fixer archetype is the strongest energetically in the family. The second strongest is the destroyer. The fixer is meant to fix what the destroyer destroys, and the sweet one soothes everyone after a destroyer has destroyed, right? And after a destroyer has done what they are here to do, right? So, and the destroyer's role isn't necessarily to destroy. We'll talk more about what the role of the destroyer is, right? But before we dig into that, let's just do a quick recap of money archetypes, right? So a money archetype, we've already done in part 1. If you didn't watch part 1, please go watch it, right? And have a deeper understanding, part 1 and part 2. It will help you understand what money archetypes are, so you can get those recordings. But money archetypes shape financial behaviors and family dynamics, right? So when we start to understand how we've reacted to trauma within our family of origin, right, from a very, very young age, we can also start to understand the kind of archetypes we took on. So as in a quick rundown, the sweet one money archetype or money profile responded to trauma within the family by people pleasing, also known as fawning. The destroyer learned to fight, right? So when everything was happening, destroyers go straight into fight mode. So most people find destroyers difficult because they often go straight to fighting before anything else, right? So, and then you've got the runaway. The runaway learned to respond to trauma predominantly by going into flight mode. So when things get difficult, they run. Things get difficult in a relationship, they ditch the relationship. Things get difficult at work, they quickly change jobs. Runaways struggle to stay in places, right? The fixer archetype learned to deal with trauma by going into force mode. So that is my theory that I then expand on in the book. Basically, force mode is learning to control a situation because there's so much chaos. One of the ways that you learn to deal with trauma is to be in control of everything and everyone. So that's why also fixers are so problematic for many family members, regardless of how much money they make and how much they help people, how much they change a family's money story, because they are so controlling, right? And then another way that then you've got the eternal child archetype. The eternal child archetype learned to deal with trauma by going into freeze mode. So they got stuck at a particular growth stage, right? So that's where you'll have a 55-year-old that still stays at home, still has the same arguments with their family members, still gets treated like they are 14. Mom still makes the bed for them, all of that, right? And if mom doesn't make the bed, but they cook for them, give them money, all of that, right? That is the eternal child archetype. And all of these ways in which these archetypes learned to predominantly deal with trauma. Listen, we all deal with trauma in all of these 5 ways. It is possible, but we have a predominant way of handling trauma, right? For example, you may find that a runaway, when they have debt, they run. A fixer won't run, right? Even though they are scared, the way that they may deal with their fear is completely different to how a runaway deals with their fears, right? Or their financial issues. So the way that we learn to deal with money because of our predominant archetype also shapes our financial behaviors, right? It also shapes how we interact with our families. For example, a sweet one, the way that they want to interact with a family member, like we discussed last time, when they are in conflict, what sweet ones will do is they will just chill out and figure out how to people please everybody in the conflict. A destroyer will literally fight to the death if they have not done their healing work. They can literally tear that family apart, tear everything to pieces, right? They will not back down. So these are, see how these are the same people, but completely different. So how you usually will see a destroyer is they are also very outspoken. Nothing can just be a family secret for them. You know, at funerals, at weddings, at family events, they are the ones, even if it's not their business, they are the ones standing up. Hey, cousin so-and-so, when do you plan to pay uncle so-and-so his money? You know? And oh, by the way, have you forgotten that you, brother so-and-so, have impregnated the girl down the road? They are the ones that are just bringing up things, and most family members will be like, is this really necessary? So people also try to avoid them, or they try to work around that profile, right? But they definitely are a bit of a problem, right? And so we need to understand our archetypes, right? Because once you understand your archetype and you start to understand your main way of interacting with money, you can start to see when you are going into freeze mode, right? You can also start to see, as I explain in the book, each archetype, even though we are all in debt, right? We have different reasons for being in debt, right? Even though we're all struggling to save, we have different reasons for not being able to save. Even though we may all be struggling to make money, we have different reasons for not being able to make money. So once we start to understand our archetypes, it's like going to the doctor, right? If I go in with a headache, me and my friend could be going in with a headache. My headache may be stress related. My friend's headache could be a brain tumor. Both of us present with the same symptom, but the root cause is different. So what personal finance does at this particular moment in time is it says we all have the same root cause, right? The reason why you cannot budget, and they teach personal finance from the point of view of the fixer. And no wonder, because most fixers are the ones that are at the very, very top, right? They are at the top of industries, they're at the top of everything, and they're very logical. So with them, they are going to teach you the logical way of what is happening in terms of your finances. But then when the rest of us try to do that, that's not the reason why my budget is falling apart. As a destroyer, I understood budgets. I'd done my MBA. I have a finance degree, right? But I just couldn't make it happen and couldn't make it work because my core wounds were not, my issues were not practical. Most fixers can fix things practically. They can do the money stuff on a very, very practical level. And when you listen to them, you're like, wow, they've budgeted, they've bought X amount of properties, and they just followed a method. You try to follow that method and you're like, what is wrong with me? Right? There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that headache thing that I gave you. So if you give someone who has a tumor a Panado, it's not going to work. But if I have a stress headache and you tell me to go sleep, drink water, take a Panado, I'm going to be fine, right? But it's the same symptoms, but completely different root causes. And because it's completely different root causes, they require different solutions. Same with our finances. So when we have a deeper understanding of our archetypes, we start to have a deeper understanding of ourselves. And of course, archetypes are just one aspect of the trauma work that I do, right? And within these archetypes, there's also so much more around the trauma that they carry than what I've even put in the book and what I'm able to put into a PowerPoint presentation. But once we understand ourselves and start to understand, oh, this may be part of what's going on with me, at least it gives us a direction, and we start to understand how to make different financial decisions, and we start to understand why we're behaving the way we're behaving and why certain things don't work for us and they work for others, right? And we also start to understand our relationships, right? And that's so, so key. Now, for example, my mother is a fixer / destroyer. I can understand her destroyer side. And her fixer side, though, used to drive me up the wall because I was like out here trying to showcase everything that was wrong with my family, my extended family. And my mother would be like figuring out how to fix it until she started to get upset and step more into a destroyer archetype, right? And so understanding who you are helps you also understand how your relationship with people, and also gives us a better understanding of our family members, right? Because then we can at least see, oh, this is why so-and-so still lives at home and is an eternal child. And I know that for most people, the eternal child is one of the most triggering archetypes. For destroyers, for us, it's mainly the sweet one. You know, they drive us just a little loopy. So archetypes definitely influence how we handle money and how we perceive money in our lives, right? And you can read more about that in page 90 as well, right? So just looking at least around the sweet one archetype, the difference between the sweet one and the how the sweet one archetypes behaves compared to what I just shared about the destroyer archetype, right? So let's talk about the destroyer archetype. Who are they? So I've just shared a little bit already. I've read from the intro of page 110, but I'm going to go even deeper in page, at the bottom of page 110 of the book. I say, the destroyers are the ones people perceive as angry or the outcasts in the family. They are the family member who will bring up uncomfortable conversations and air the dirty laundry in the middle of a peaceful dinner. They seem to have no peace and can ruin family get-togethers with truth. They call out the family pedophile without a second thought and hold everyone accountable for any other hidden secrets, right? So the destroyers are seen as the red, right? And that's actually their role, even within society, right? The destroyer archetype is known for rebellion. So just think of the family members that you're just like, even the jobs that they tend to choose are rebellious jobs, right? They're not really driven when they make career decisions. They're not the ones that are going to be driven by how much money you can make in that job, right? They will be your healers, your artists, or they'll just come with something completely odd and completely different that nobody has ever done before, right? And they just can't seem to follow the family norms and traditions. They can be family norms and traditions, but destroyers will struggle with that. Even in terms of their spiritual practices, they are often those family members that everybody may be going a particular direction with spirituality and they just go a whole opposite direction. And they will really, really struggle. And when forced, it becomes a huge issue with them. Other family members may be like, but this is what we do. What's the big deal? Right? So they are often the rebels, but there's also one of the key reasons for this is that destroyers, apart from their role in the family being to rebel, part of the rebellion is they are here to look at what works and what doesn't work. So they are here to go, this does not work. As a result, we need to change it. This is why they have the second most intense energy within the family dynamics, right? Because it takes a lot of energy to fight the adults in your life as a child. So even as children, you will find them very, very difficult. Unless a parent is also a destroyer, right? Many, many parents will find destroyer children very challenging, very difficult to parent. They will test you. They will push your buttons. They will push your limits. They will question everything that you do. When you say A, they say B. And part of that is because destroyers are not just here to shape the family, they're also here to shape society. They become the activists within society. They are the ones that look at how we do certain things and they go, schooling isn't that great. What if we do homeschooling? You know, or I don't like this 9 to 5 thing. What if we work from home? They are actually here to disrupt the way that we do things. And this is actually super important in the same way that it's important within society that we have activists and we have all these people that push us to think about things differently, that keep irritating people and annoying people. This doesn't work. We don't like this. Let's do this, and pushing against certain structures, right? It's important because it pushes society forward. It pushes innovation forward. It causes us to think of different ways to do things. It's the same within families. But what often happens is that often especially when destroyers are little children and they are pointing out certain things, most families feel attacked. They feel that this child is rude. They want to shut it down. And then they try to get them to conform, right? And that's one of the worst things. When a destroyer conforms, it absolutely impacts their income because it goes against their soul patterning around how they are here to make money, right? They are here to make money in non-traditional ways, in ways that don't make sense to others, right? And then to help others see that there's another way to do that. But most times, because they've been beaten down, what often happens is then they feel like they have to do whatever they're told. But deep down, most destroyers will walk around knowing if they've taken the traditional path, they'll know deep in their hearts, no, this is not my path. And it can actually cause them deep depression because it's going against what they are here to do. They will know that even if they're making lots of money, you'll hear them just say, I am so deeply unhappy. I don't know what to do. This is not what I want, right? And then they go off and do something completely, the day they quit, they go off and do something completely odd. It doesn't make them lots of money sometimes to start off with. They have the capacity to make a lot of money because remember, right under the fixer is the destroyer. So, but like they will literally feel that in their spirit, right? And they know, most destroyers know, but they keep trying to put themselves in a little box. And it impacts their income, it impacts their finances in a lot of ways. And we'll talk about that. So because of who they are, right? And because often families, change is uncomfortable, right? So what often happens when people are rebelling against certain norms and children don't have the language to like now very eloquent, right? By my teens, I had kind of developed a language, but the language was very like violent, you know? I wasn't an easy child. Like I would just say to people, this is what's going to happen in the family, and this is what's going to happen to so and so. And it would look like I was being so rude. And things have played out like that in my family, right? I wasn't being rude, I just didn't have the language. And often those children in families where respect is demanded and there's a lot of like, you know, you respect the parents, you honor them, all of that, there can be a lot of pushback. So those children, when they don't behave according to the norms within the family, they are seen as disrupting the harmony of the family. Because for most people, it is it's much easier not to deal with the trauma than to actually address the trauma. It's much easier not to deal with the money stories that the family carries. It's much easier not to deal with some of the taboo family topics of abuse, etc., that are happening within the family, of gambling, of addiction, much easier. So when you've got this archetype that is born into the family and starts addressing those things and starts doing it in a way where they don't feel heard, they're going to get more loud and loud and loud and more violent. And what will eventually then they'll eventually be labeled as the problem child, the child that doesn't listen. And over time, they start to become excluded from the family. They get seen as the black sheep of the family. So then the destroyer archetype has two options. They can continue to be the rebel and continue to figure out how to stand by themselves, stand in their truth, or they can conform to the family norms. And in so doing, they hide all that anger, they turn away from their main role, and they end up struggling with depression. I know so many destroyers, so many clients that I've worked with that are destroyers that have gone through deep depression because instead of what they do is they learn to internalize that anger. They learn to internalize that energy that is here to be a catalyst, to internalize it and turn it on themselves and force themselves to conform to be able to live with the toxicity of the family instead of highlight it and fight it and mirror it, right? Because that is so challenging because every time they speak out, they are ostracized. And every time they're ostracized, they feel so alone and they become the outsiders, right? So they take that fear of being the outsider and they take it into adulthood and they take it into their workplaces, they take it into all other places and they pretend to be sweet, right? They learn how to behave in a particular way because they've learned that you don't want to upset people because then you become an outsider, right? Most destroyers are also extremely independent, right? So from a young age, you have to be independent, right? Because your role within the family isn't an easy role. You are here to constantly highlight what isn't working. So if you think of activists and how much energy they put into activism work, those are destroyers, right? How exhausted they get, how lonely it can feel for them when they are busy highlighting certain things, the pushback that they sometimes get, all of that, right? Destroyers have to learn to have an independent, often develop that independence, not because they want to, but because they have to, right? Because often they are ostracized from the family. So they realize that actually, for me to keep living, because people are out here not understanding me, labeling me as someone who loves confrontation, as someone who's always fighting, as someone who just has no peace. They learn that they have to be independent. And often that independence means, even in adulthood, most destroyers, when you talk to them, they will tell you that they feel alone. Fixers also feel alone, but fixers, their aloneness is from a whole different dynamic, right? And I don't want to say they almost cause that, but that's their own the dynamic of a fixer's aloneness is completely different. The destroyer sometimes feels like they are a stranger within a family. You know, I remember being about 14 years old, and one of my cousins literally looked at me, and he was older than me. He's now late, but he said to me, "You're not like us, you know? You don't think like us, you don't process things like us, you're just not like us in this family." And friends would often tell me that as well, right? So destroyers want to be like everybody else, to be accepted, right? But what often happens with a destroyer is that because they feel that ostracization, they have to learn to be independent. So even in adulthood, when they run out of money, when they when they run out of savings, when they get into debt, they often have to figure it out themselves. They often feel like they don't have a family member that they can call on. Most destroyers, though, will set up their own families with other fellow destroyers, right? So they'll have an eclectic group of friends who are like artists, activists, etc. All these incredible people that think completely different from the rest of society, and then they will rely on those people. But in terms of family, they may not always feel like they have connection with their family of origin until they do their own healing work, right? So that's something to really, really bear in mind when you're dealing with a destroyer archetype. So the destroyer's role, like I said, is to expose hidden family truths and long-held secrets. They create a necessary chaos. And why I have to say this, right? So I talked about the chaos that they create, but most people hate that. Most people cannot handle that the destroyer brings up the family secrets. Why do you always bring up? You just have no peace. We're here at the family function. We're trying to enjoy this wedding. We're trying to enjoy this anniversary party. We're trying to enjoy this. And now you're going to bring the drama, right? What destroyers are trying to do is they're trying to get heard, but they're also trying to initiate change within the family system. And here's what's so interesting. For change to happen, you have to have some kind of chaos, right? You have to have some kind of friction. You have to have, some kind of discomfort. But what most people want is the comfort. And who most people in the family will praise is the sweet one, because the sweet one makes them feel comfortable, right? But comfort is not what leads to change. So what most people want is that, oh, the change should be comfortable. But this is where the destroyer comes in. They have to initiate that change. And sometimes they have to awaken people to what is truly happening. Because what often happens is with families, most families have already got an established norm and culture and a way of doing things and managing things, right? How they respond to trauma. There's just an unwritten code. Whereas the destroyer is here, doesn't understand the code, and just wants it to change. So there'll often be a friction between the family and the destroyer. It's almost inevitable, unless the other archetypes within the family have done their healing work, in which case they become allies, especially if you've got a fixer who has done their work and has started to step into the sovereign one. They can do a lot of incredible work with a destroyer, right? So that's really, really important to understand. So they do serve as a catalyst for positive transformation. So in the book, I explain it more clearly. I say the role of the destroyer is to shine the light on the family's skeletons in the closet and bring these to the fore so they can be healed and dealt with. When the destroyer's role is not honored in a family, they come to be considered the black sheep of the family. The family keeps repeating the same financial and other behavioral patterns for generations. And that's really important to note. When a family does not honor the destroyer archetype, a family may find itself repeating the same financial patterns, same trauma patterns for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, like generation after generation after generation, right? Until you get a strong enough destroyer archetype that is either born into a family or marries into a family and then starts to basically cause what feels to the family like it is tearing this family apart. But again, I'm going to mute. I don't know who just joined. Matsidiso, I'm just muting you. Okay. So again, if you do not have a strong fixer archetype in that particular lifetime, then your sweet one archetype has to somehow step up and become very strong, or your destroyer archetype has to be taught how to move into their renovator archetype very, very fast, or else it can completely tear that family apart. Because the sweet one will not, even if they keep trying to glue everyone together and hold the family together, they are no match for a destroyer archetype, not even close, right? And the runaway archetypes and the eternal child archetypes are just not there. So you need a very, very strong fixer archetype if you have a very, very strong destroyer archetype. But I have seen it often where families don't honor the destroyer archetype, or destroyers don't feel safe enough because their energies are also not as strong, or they learn from a very young age that they have to be very agreeable. Then the patterns keep staying in place because there's no catalyst that comes to them and says, here, we need to change. And no one forces them to change. And if a family has many, many sweet one archetypes, oh my gosh, that will keep the cycle can continue. Listen, everyone loves the sweet one. Everyone adores the sweet one archetype, right? But the sweet one archetype's role is to stop conflict. And healthy conflict is important. So what the sweet one will do is they will create dishonest harmony, right? Because they don't know how to handle honest conflict. The destroyer archetype is able to do conflict, but with a fixer and a sweet one archetype, that conflict can be, I don't want to say contained, but it doesn't have to tear a family apart. So what are the core wounds of the destroyer? Because of the rebellion that they've had to stage from a very young age in order to be heard, most destroyers have been ostracized, right? So it makes sense that one of their core wounds is the wound of not belonging. So this is similar to an abandonment wound, in that the destroyer doesn't, but unlike the abandonment wound, it's the destroyer has been part of a family unit, right? But they just don't feel like they belong to that family unit. So the way that that plays out is this deep fear of never being part of a tribe. And this is something that's very, very deeply embedded within us as humans. Because in the Stone Age, if you were not part of a tribe and you didn't belong to a tribe, chances of you making it alive on your own were very, very slim. So when a destroyer has not healed their wound of not belonging and doesn't understand where it comes from, doesn't understand how it plays out, they will try by all means to conform. And I've already explained how that impacts their finances, right? Especially their income, right? It has a huge impact on their income. So when they have this wound, they will try to belong by all means necessary, and they may even try to fit in by buying the same clothes as everyone, dressing in the same way. So it's one of those things, oh, I can feel that I'm different inside, so let me just dress like everybody else, and have the same things as everyone else, so that they don't notice that I feel this way, so that they can accept me. So then they end up just following the crowd, and that has a huge impact on their finances, because then they're just spending not because they want to, but because they want to be accepted by everybody else. And then they also have this fear of being too much, because from a young age, most destroyers were told that you are just rude, you are disrespectful, you don't respect your elders, you are just basically too much, right? So with that, they are so scared to shine. So most destroyers will struggle with allowing their light to shine. They may have no problem being visible, don't get me wrong, right? Unlike the sweet one who may have a deep fear of being visible and being different from the crowd, they may be okay with visibility, but they may be allowing themselves to be visible just to a certain extent, not to go beyond that. Because if they go beyond that, then people may ostracize them. They may experience the same thing that they experienced in their families with the outside world, with the working world, with their friends, right? So what they do is they try to hide. They don't want to be too much. They don't want to say exactly what's on their mind. So they will say up to a particular point, but no more. I remember being in the MBA program and when I was in Boston, and one of the things that I was really shocked with, right, was I was doing one of the modules we had to do was management accounting. And I thought I was going to definitely get an A plus for management accounting. I got an A. For most people, that's not a big deal, right? But I had gotten 100% on almost every thing for management accounting. And I went to my lecturer and I said, why did you give me an A? And she was like, well, firstly, 50% of your grade, which is true in the US, 50% of your grade in postgrad depends on your talking in class. And you score higher if you are able to move the conversation in a very innovative manner, right? And my lecturer said, the reason why I didn't give you an A plus, and this stuck with me because it also kickstarted my journey on the work a little later. And she said, it's because when I read what you handed in into me for marking and what you would then argue in class around certain things, well, it was completely different. You actually didn't say your full truth. You would say just enough for you to be comfortable, so that, and when you did that, you denied your classmates from having an opportunity to grow. So only I would get to read your assignments and I would get to read the way that you were thinking about certain things. And for that reason, you got an A. And that stuck with me because I was like, okay, that's a fair thing. But I had never seen it as because I didn't want to talk too much, right? Because I was often the one that was talking and bringing all these, just throwing wild ideas and concepts out, mainly because I also knew my grade depended on it, right? But at times it was just like, you don't want to be too much. And I had never seen it as when you don't want to be too much, you also deny other people of thinking differently, of seeing things differently. And I remember when I started Wealthy Money, it was the same thing for me. It took me about 2 to 3 years, and I will tell you just how much that impacted my finances, right? It took me 2 to 3 years to ever talk about my meditations, the downloads that I had, everything. I had the Money Magic course for maybe 2 years. Then Teen Coach Nomveliso showed up, did the course, started doing the meditations, and she was like, listen, the gold is in the meditations. Why are you not talking about the meditations? I was like, oh no, people don't want to hear about the meditation, so I'm just going to teach traditional ways of budgeting. And she was like, but Van, that doesn't work. The work is the trauma work. It's your meditations. It's all the things that you are developing, the things that most people are not even talking about. And that's how, actually, it was Nomveliso that started talking about the meditations and the course. more than I did. And that's how this course actually started to grow, because then other people started doing the meditations because she was talking about them so much. And that's how I started transitioning to full-time entrepreneurship, right? So my fear of being too much was also was coming from my upbringing, right? Oh my gosh, here she goes again, talking about trauma, talking about ancestral stuff. People don't want to hear about ancestral trauma. People just want to hear about budgeting and the practical stuff. This is how you grow your income, all of that. And it's only when Nomveliso started to make it a mission, she literally went out of her way to just start talking about that. And then when I started giving myself permission to be too much, to start talking about the meditation, start explaining that, listen, it's all the other inner work. And some of this inner work isn't out there. Because I felt like if I said that, people would be like, oh my gosh, she's bragging. She's so full of herself. And it's only when I started saying, no, my work is different. And when actually not me started saying that, but Nomveliso started saying, your Vangile's work is different. This is what she's doing. This is what she covers. Her meditations are not what you think they are. Her inner work isn't what you think it is. That's when my company actually took off. That's when Wealthy Money took off. So when we have this fear, when the destroyer lives with this fear of being too much, they actually invisibilize themselves and they actually constrict themselves, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to be like everybody else, right? So in work meetings, they don't say too much. In certain spaces, they don't say too much. As entrepreneurs, they don't want to come off as just being too much, because they'll be hurt and they will be rejected, right? Because then people will say, who do you think you are? And then that triggers the little 4-year-old that was told that they had to shut up, sit down, and follow the norms, right? And that fear of rejection is also impacting their finances, right? So for most destroyers, the fear of rejection actually will play out as a vow of invisibility. It will look like a vow of invisibility, but at the core of it, it is a fear of rejection. It's not so much the vow of invisibility. Where the sweet one struggles with the vow of invisibility, the destroyer's core fear that looks like invisibility plays out like, I don't want to be seen, I don't want anyone to know about me, is actually a fear of rejection, right? That's one of their deepest fears. And then, of course, they may have, because of the fear of rejection, they then make the vow of invisibility. They then make a vow to be invisible. But underneath that vow, is when they do the work around the vow of invisibility, they also have to do the work around the fear of rejection, right? And that fear of rejection also has a huge impact on them in terms of finances, right? It stops them from really showing up. As we've already said, the fear of being too much, because they fear that they'll be rejected. They can't show up and show off and talk about their work. Oh my God, this is why my idea is so incredible. This is why my work is so unique. In fact, anything that shows them as unique or different or not what is the norm actually scares them, because they've learned from a young age that that's not a good look, right? So they try so what they'll do is they'll try to figure out, how do I make it so that it's like other people's and people can understand me, right? And that obviously impacts their finances, because they can't really talk from their full truth. And often people are not hearing them or seeing them. And anyway, your role, if you are a destroyer, is to move the conversation forward, is to move whatever is happening to the next level, right? So it's actually not working even at a soul level. And because it's not working at a soul level, it's not working at an energetic level. So it impacts our income, right? And because of the fear of rejection, they may do things, invest in things that they don't really want to, even though their spirit is telling them something else. So they may be prone to losing money when they invest, because they're going against their core intuition, or just finding themselves in debt. And one of the things that I would also say is the wound of not belonging, because they have no support system because of their wound of not belonging. They may find themselves in debt because they do everything from scratch by themselves. So destroyers, even if they're from a wealthy family, until they start to heal, you may find that they ask for nothing from that family. They don't tap into those resources. They just don't feel like they deserve it, or they're scared of the reaction because of how they've been treated. So they often start from scratch with everything. And so they I guess they will often be forced to hustle, right? And to do things by themselves. So sometimes they get into debt because they have no safety net, no one to rely on, right? And that can also put them, that can also be one of the main reasons why they're in debt. It may not be because they're spending recklessly. And sometimes because of that, they feel the need to buy other people's love so that they don't always feel alone, right? So one of the things that I say in page 121 is almost every idea and a belief we have about money and success comes from childhood. These ideas and beliefs then impact our entire view of money. We walk around thinking we are adulting, being all grown up and making our own decisions around money, when it's really the 4-year-old version of us who's making those decisions. So all these wounds from the destroyer are like wounds from childhood, as you can see, right? I keep talking about how just their role within the family starts to impact the wounds that they carry into adulthood, and how all those wounds start to impact the way they show up financially, right? So what is the destroyer's healing journey? The first thing for a destroyer is just self-acceptance, right? One of the things is to just accept that this is just who you are, right? Most people are going to think that you have no peace, that you just love fighting, that you love causing conflict. You're going to be misunderstood, right? By other people who are not destroyers. Fellow destroyers are going to love you. They're going to think you're the next best thing. They're going to understand where you're coming from, and it's going to be a good time. But often, the first step is accepting that, okay, other people may not see me the way I see myself, and they may not understand my intentions. And that also means then looking at all the stories that you have been told. Sorry? Hello? Google to unmuting you. Guys, please just be aware. Make sure that you stay muted, right? So, first step is self-acceptance. One of the things I would even say is write down every story that you carry about yourself, that you've been told about yourself, those beliefs that you have held on to, right? And start doing the work around that. So this is where I would also get most destroyers to also do the not good enough meditation, right? But I would also have them do lesson 16 of the Money Magic course, where we would do the fear of losing love, because that's a very, very deep fear for most destroyers, right? And there's also, I don't know what lesson, and then lesson 22, breathwork meditation around the fear of rejection, right? Those would be the key places that I would have, like the key lessons that I would have a lot of destroyers focus on, right? And really, really doing some of the journal prompts, I think, under lesson 8 and lesson 19, so that they can really start to give themselves permission to and self-acceptance. So that's all in the Money Magic course. That's for all my clients that are in the Money Magic course. And you suspect that you may be a destroyer, that's it, right? So once you've written down all the things you've been told about yourself, all the things that you've been made to believe about yourself, because it's really rough when you've been the black sheep of the family. You've been called all sorts of names. You're disrespectful, you're belligerent, you're this, you're that, all those things. So write those things down, because some of those things you've internalized. And then I would go to lesson 1 of the Money course if you're a money magic student, and I would do the releasing. Sorry, someone's was this way. I'm just going to mute you. Because that for me would be a meditation, especially the meditation around releasing thoughts in the body, right? And maybe even releasing emotions in the body, because a lot of that has been carried in the body. So we want to start releasing those stories. And I would work with each and every thought line by line by line, no matter how long it took. If I wasn't in the Money Magic course and I didn't have these resources, like I said, the Money Magic course is the fast-paced option. I would work with it. I would write down every thought, and every day I would question the thought about myself, right? I would maybe use the Byron Katie technique. I would ask questions. Who would I be without this thought? How has this thought impacted my finances? How would my finances look without this thought? I would dedicate time to that, right? Obviously, in the course, in the Money Magic course, that just happens like in 30 minutes, you're done. But if you deal with each thought, the meditation is 30 minutes long, you're done. Next thought, I think it's about 20 minutes actually. So it's a different thing. But if I was doing it on my own, I would, and I didn't have the resources, I would give myself that time. And that's actually how I started with this work, right? And that's how I started developing the body of work that I had. I sat down with each and every thought that I'd been told about myself, that people had said about me, that I believed about myself. And then I started writing it down, questioning it, sitting with it in my body, sitting with how it feels in my body, the emotions, how it impacts me, how it's impacting my finances, and just really dissecting it, right? So if you are a Money Magic student, lesson 1, meditation, releasing thoughts in the body, right? Because it's already done, it helps with that. And then if there are particular emotions that are coming up, dealing with the emotions in the body. And then I would even go to lesson 22 and do the womb breath work meditation, right? Or again, the meditation around rejection, the breath work meditation on rejection in lesson 22, right? So that's how I would do it. So that would be, the last part would be healing the fear of rejection, right? I'm trying to think what I would do around if I didn't have the Money Magic course and I was healing the fear of rejection. Because remember, a lot of the meditations that I've created, a lot of this body of work is like literally me creating it and working with my spirit guides and my ancestors to basically heal my own stuff, because I wasn't finding something that was working for me. But I'm trying to see what, if people don't have access to the course, what else they could do, right? I guess maybe just honoring myself, seeing the good things about myself every day. I would write that down as well and just sit with the fear of rejection. Every time it comes up, I would sit with it, right? And just sit with it and be with it. Again, for Money Magic students, lesson 22, the fear of rejection, breath work. And I think it's actually a womb breath work meditation. So it goes directly, it works directly with the womb. It will help you a lot, right? So I'm going to read just from page 258 regarding the healing journey of the Destroyer, right? So what I say in page 258 of the book, I say, the renovator is the healing or healed version of the destroyer. They know what it is to be the black sheep of the family, have left the family home. Destroyers rarely live at home, right? Have done their healing and are now back to take on their role as the one who shares the who shows the family what becomes possible when one heals their trauma and lives their truth. So once the destroyer starts to heal their fear of rejection and their wound of not belonging, right? They start to realize that they actually do belong. They belong to themselves, right? And it's okay to stand for yourself. Part of the self-acceptance is that you are coming back home to you and you're starting to accept yourself for who you truly are. And when you're able to do that, you don't have to fight your family. You don't have to verbally fight, physically fight, do the most to force them to change. Just by you being you, because remember, part of your role is to mirror certain things. You don't always have to mirror their trauma right back to them. You can also mirror what healing looks like to them. And when you start to mirror that, the family then comes to you, right? And they will even ask you for help, right? So a lot of destroyers that have gone on their healing journeys and have become healers will tell you that's literally what started to happen. That's how they knew that they could go into the healing space, because they started to heal and people started to come to them and see them, right? So one of the things, so with regards to that, I say the destroyer knows how much energy it takes to fight the family and break down the house to get everyone to open the closet in order to reveal their skeletons, to get to the truth, because that's all that matters to them. And as they mature and heal and step into the role of the renovator, they realize, just like the renovator of a building, that one doesn't need to break down the entire house just to tear it down and rebuild dilapidated closets, right? So, and that's a big thing for a destroyer, because one of the things that they have to learn, that they learn on their journey to becoming the renovator, as they start to work on self-acceptance, they also start to have compassion for other people's wounds, because in them healing their own wounds, they start to see how challenging it is for people to see their own shadows, right? And to deal with their own shadows at a deeper level. And that compassion helps them when they go back into their family of origin. They go back calmer, they go back more chilled, they choose their battles, they know when to fight, when to keep quiet, right? When a fight is not theirs, and they know which fight that they should fully put their energy behind. And that's where some incredible changes start to happen. So how does healing their wounds start to impact their finances, right? So for most destroyers, again, because they are innovative, once they start to heal like all that they have been experiencing, right? Once they start to heal their wound of not belonging, their fear of rejection, their fear of being too much, they start to feel confident enough to become innovative and to really start sharing their innovations with the rest of the world. They start opening up, they start openly challenging society on certain things, and they figure out how to make a business from that, right? Or if they are in the workplace, they are the ones that start saying things like, but why don't we do things this way? They find their voice, right? And they start to get noticed because they are too much, right? Remember this, their energy is the second energy after the fixer. So there are certain things that they see, especially around making money, all of that. And they start to increase their income in that way, right? Because they're no longer worried about, do they belong? Will people reject me? They just now go out and try things. They are the innovators. They are the rebels. And so they have no problems really doing things and implementing. When destroyers have a problem implementing and doing things when they are deep within their wounds, especially the fear of rejection, that will completely stop them taking action. But just like the fixer, a destroyer has a lot of energy to take action. It's just that they are so scared that other people will reject them, right? Like, for me, I am married to a fixer, right? When I'm like, I can't take action because, oh my God, I don't want to do this around money because people will reject me. That does not register to a fixer, right? He just gives me very practical things, and it just continues. Like, as a fixer, the idea that your emotions could start to interrupt your money is just like not something that they often entertain, because it's like, this is about money, this is about my emotions, and money is important to a fixer. And it's just something that they rationally understand. But to the rest of us, when money is so interlinked with our emotions, it is a very, very challenging, you know? So once a destroyer also accepts that they are just different and they are here on their own little path to live in the woods, I don't know, to build a hut on a beach or something, it really does reduce their debt, right? Because now they are able to spend in accordance with their core values, with the things that really matter. They're not spending money in order to have themselves be accepted by other people, right? So they just spending money just on the things that bring them joy and on the things that align with their core values, right? It's kind of weird because that literally for me, I've been able to travel tremendously a lot more still when I started doing my healing work, right? Accepting all of these things, healing my wounds of not belonging, the fear of rejection, all of that, and yet completely stay out of debt. When I was traveling less and still trying to do what was expected of me in every way, get the degrees, get the jobs, all of that, I was heavily, heavily in debt, right? And yet now with the business, where usually with business finances are not always like on point, you don't know what's going to happen. I've been able to do so much more, buy properties, do all of these things. Why? Because it's in accordance with my soul patterning, right? So also for us to be able to accept that we are different, all of us are different as people, right? But for a destroyer to accept it is very scary because they've been ostracized for accepting themselves for as who they are, right? So for them to truly accept themselves is a very scary process. But once they do that, they also stop trying to buy love. They stop trying to get other people on the same bandwagon as them. They stop trying to make it about other people. You know, it's all about them. And that helps a lot in terms of debt. And when they choose to be too much, right? A destroyer that says, okay, I'm going to be too much now. I'm trying to see if I can. I was trying to see if I can move this, but never mind. It's just going to be there. So when you choose to be too much as a destroyer, you are also going to have increased savings. Why? Because it's no longer scary to be just you, right? And money, having more money no longer feels like, oh my God, people will think differently of me. They'll see me differently. It's no longer scary to be the person. One of the biggest fears that I used to have, and I know this is true of some of my clients who are also destroyers, one of the biggest fears that comes up for us a lot as we're going, or for a lot of them, as they're going through the debt journey, and for me as well, going through paying off debt and living a debt-free life. It's like, oh, I won't be able to relate to other people who are in debt. Because that's so important to a destroyer, because this is just another thing that makes them feel like you think you're better, you think that you're different, all of those things, or you want to be extra. So they try to fit in unconsciously, right? And don't want to be too much. But once they give themselves permission to be too much, they're able to just have more increased savings. And it's a very, very real thing for a destroyer archetype to be so scared to be debt free because then I won't fit in with other people. And it can feel like death to a lot of them, right? It's like, and one of the, I know usually when I'm dealing with a destroyer archetype, because at some point we will reach a core belief of, if I get out of debt, I will die, because who will I be without this debt? Because the debt was also a way of kind of not having savings, being in debt was also a way of being able to identify with other people. So at month end, oh, let's stress about month end bills, right? At least you have that connection. Now, when that's taken away, you no longer have that. And that can trigger the, oh my gosh, here we go again. I'm going to be the black sheep in this dynamic, right? So my last quote for you guys is from page 259 when it comes to healing and the renovator archetype. As I say, what I've seen in my work is how the feelings of abandonment and rejection lead many destroyers on some of the deepest healing journeys. And when they come out of the other end, they take other family members on the journey. They have taken a page from Rumi, who says, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself." I hope that makes sense, you guys. So I'll come back as usual to the rest of this presentation. I'm going to stop and just do a Q&A. Any questions? I'm going to read the comments, right, from today. Greetings, Sheena. Tandazo, you're saying that's so interesting. I'm not sure which part you were talking about. So Tandazo, you're saying, I was just wondering if you could switch between archetypes and behavior. You just clarified that. Yes, I've said this before, that you have a core archetype, right? You've got a primary archetype and mainly a secondary archetype. So you switch between the shadow archetypes of those two archetypes, your primary and secondary, and then you also switch between the golden archetypes, right? The different those two different archetypes. So Pavalo, you say, when a destroyer conforms, it impacts their money. Ma'am, I heard you loud and clear. I'm glad. I'm really, really glad. So D, you say, I think I'm currently the destroyer. I get to wonder if it is affecting my job opportunities. I recently asked my former head of the department if she were to ever promote me, and she said no. I knew what her answer would be and appreciated her truth. It's so hard because bottling things up messes up with me. So it's best I say how I see things, and unfortunately, I can't be blunt. Or you mean I can be blunt, right? I've always tried by all means to not be seen because I never wanted to be a teacher's pet. I'm currently on a journey of being truthful and being real with myself and those around me. I'm tired of putting face just to make people comfortable around me whilst I am suffocating. Yeah, it does feel like suffocation, Heidi. It's really, really intense. And then Pablo, you say, I totally agree, Van. I have been debt-free for nearly a year, and it is a shock to my system. I know, Pavi. I was thinking of you, actually. I was like, yep. My fellow destroyer. So guys, Pavi and I go on like entire WhatsApp messages around Sweet One archetype. So we just like, oh my God, cannot deal. Please help me. Like, the Sweet One archetype is such a trigger for a destroyer. It's such a challenge for us. I can't even explain it to you guys. So Tandazo, you say, I'm blown away by how much light this has shed. A lot is clearer now. A lot is clearer now. It's starting to link. I'm so glad, Tandazo. And then iPhone, I don't know who it is, just says iPhone, right? iPhone 15. Says, thank you, Van. Everything you said to me everything you have said spoke to me in volumes. I've realized that I have a bit of a Sweet One and destroyer and it costed me so much. I have lost even money, deep knowing that the investment, not sure what, there's this little thing there. Oh, okay. Not sure, sorry, deep knowing that the investment was off because I was scared of asking for my money because it felt like I was going to lose the friendship. Right now, I am ready. I am working on it and also being honest with myself and others. Thank you, Van. It's such a pleasure. Sheena, you say, wow, Vangile, these sessions are mind-blowing. I am certainly letting it sink. We give thanks so much. I am certainly trying not to be too much. Oh, it's such a pleasure, Sheena. Guys, these sessions are like, my clients will tell you, these sessions are literally like not even 1% of the depth that they go into with the work. So I'm glad that you guys find value in them. I love doing these sessions. In fact, it took me so long to do the archetypes, because it's like, oh, what am I going to talk about? And then I just realized I just have to talk about what I know, like what I'm understanding, my downloads, the depth of research I've done. That's enough. No, Temtember, you said, Van, this is me right now. I am so calm and I set nasty boundaries in such a calm manner, which works in many ways. Interesting how assertive, and I know how this is seen as pompous and rude. Guess what? Not guess what? Not my monkeys. Yes, yes, exactly, Nontiantambo. And you say being too much is divine, and nobody comes anywhere near me with flimsy stories. I love it, Nontiantambo. Yes, definitely. I mean, I think that's the only way to operate, right? So I think it's very, very challenging for destroyers because there is definitely that fear of being too much. So does anyone have any question? Feel free to ask a question, unmute. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the tail end of our class today. Last time there were a lot of questions because most people are the sweet ones within the family. You do need a lot of sweet ones in a family to keep the family together. You can't have too many fixers. You definitely cannot have too many destroyers in a family. If there are too many destroyers in a family, it will tear a family to pieces, right? So what you do need a lot of sweet ones to massage whatever is happening. So sweet ones are actually really and truly the pillar of our societies and the pillar of our families because they keep everything together. Or else all of us can just be, can one be a destroyer that runs away? Yes, Sheena. So get the book, guys. This book is thick, as you can see, right? So what I don't say in this book, at the end of every chapter, there is a case study. And at the end of every case study, there are questions and actions to take. There is basically exercises, things that I'm just sharing. I'm not covering any of the questions that I share in the book in here, right? So you guys are going to have to get the book to be able to go deeper and look at the case studies and then ask yourselves questions and all of that, and also questions that you can ask of family members that are any of these archetypes. I'm not going to cover that in here. It's just overkill. And there are so many things in the book that I actually don't cover in here. So this is also sort of like brand new information at times, but I do try to link it to what I said in the book. So Sheena, the short answer is yes, you can be a destroyer archetype who also has a secondary archetype of a runaway. Just going to switch on my light, guys. Yeah, so you can be all of that, right? And then Sharon, you say, it felt like being in church and trying to say, so and so should hear this. My homework is how one's identifying various archetypes and respond with understanding. Yes, so definitely, guys. So if you feel like people should hear this, I mean, I know people that bought the book, like a lot of my clients bought the book and they bought it in bulk for their family members, right? But if you feel like people should hear this, invite them to the masterclasses. The masterclasses are free. Share the links. These recordings, once you share the link to the masterclasses, the wealthy-money.com/classes master link, everyone gets the previous recordings and they're available until November, right? So share them with people. Don't hold on to information, right? If you know that people will find value in this, go talk to them, share everything, right? This is how we start to change our family dynamics, So when we start to share what we know so that it doesn't feel, so that people can also get their own aha moments and awakenings. So Shania, you say, thank you so much. Certainly will share, definitely. Anything else, guys? Do you have any other questions before I move on? Okay. I am going to go back to share the screen. Okay, here we go. So if you're wondering where to get the book, you can buy the book on Take-A-Lot, Amazon, all major bookstores and ebook stores internationally. If you're in South Africa, at Exclusive Books, Wordsworth, what's the other one? Bargain Books, right? So you can go to any major bookstores in South Africa and get your book. If you're abroad, I know that the book is selling well in Canada. So Canada, I know it's Indigo Books. In the US, I know that people are getting it at Barnes and Noble. You can go to Barnes and Noble and go to the store, and if they don't have it at your Barnes and Noble, just ask them to order it. Just tell them the name of the book, tell them my name. It should be on their system and they should order it and you should be able to pick it up. I know that this is a thing that happens because I'm constantly giving people in my emails this information and they come right? And of course, Amazon is always like just a great option. If you don't feel like leaving your home, if you're in South Africa, take a lot. Anywhere else, Amazon, right? There is also, if you love supporting independent bookstores like I do, so this is the book once more, What's Your Money Personality? Changing the Way Black Families Manage Their Finances, right? And I know that it's people, that the book is resonating with people of all races. I get that, right? But that is the title of the book. So in South Africa, if you want to support an independent bookstore, check out Suela's bookstore, the Book Circle Capital, at bookcapital.co.za. They deliver very fast. I mean, I've had people tell me that they've gotten their books within 24, 48 hours, right? And it's always nice to have that personalized touch. So go check out the website and order directly from there. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to work with you, right? You can definitely work with me through the Money Magic course, which is an online course. And you can go find more information there at wealthy-money.com/money magic. If you want one-on-one coaching and you are wanting to, you're like, listen, I'm done with this. I want to be able to do this in a short period of time. And I don't want to do this on my own because I know that when I have support, I'm more likely to get where I'm going faster. So that's why most people choose one-on-one coaching, because they're able to shift very, very quickly and they get to their goals faster. So if you're like me and you're just like, I do not like to work on a thing by myself and then to take forever and ever, like, and you want to have that personalized support, you can work with me individually. I do have one spot left for one-on-one coaching. It's Wealthy, and you can learn more about the coaching at that link, but I'm also going to be talking about it in the next 5 minutes, right? So my focus right now, because I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people who are employed realize just how impactful visibility is on our income, right? So I'm doing a lot of deep work with clients on visibility, and I'm absolutely loving it, right? So we're looking at healing the ancestral trauma around visibility. We're looking at understanding our nervous system responses, really changing the cycle of behavior that keeps us invisible. And we have very, very clear goals on what is it that you get from the coaching. So what is your income goal, right? What is it that you want to achieve when we do coaching? And that's the work that we're doing, right? And transforming and looking at how we operate, transforming our business practices by really understanding our ancestral wisdom, right? So that is the aim of the coaching, is helping you get where you want to go faster, because you're not doing it alone, you're doing it with me. And we're going to be working very, very deeply on your own traumas and your own trauma responses and helping you increase your income, right? So what goes into the coaching? How does my coaching work? I work 4 months one-on-one with a client, and we do 2 hour calls every other week on Zoom. So we come on Zoom and it's just you and I, and we do 2 hours in a session. When you go up from that session, you have very customized journal prompts and meditations. And a lot of it is also based on where you are in this particular moment in time, right? So you have that additional support. So we're not going to be rehashing the journal prompts or the meditations in the coaching sessions. We're not doing the journal prompts and the meditations in the Money Magic course. We're looking at where you are, and I'm working with you on an individual level as a person, right? As an individual, where you are in that moment. And then afterwards, you have journal prompts and meditations that I'm pulling from the Money Magic course. If I don't have if I don't have specific journal prompts that are in the Money Magic course, or if I don't have meditations there, I will create meditations just for you. I also create journal prompts just for you. And then we do daily check-ins via WhatsApp during weekdays from Monday to Friday. So I'm constantly talking to my clients on WhatsApp. You know, a lot of my clients will let you know that I'm available. We talk, I give feedback in real time. So when something is happening, they've done a meditation, they've had a shift, because sometimes a shift really is that instantaneous, right? We also look, if you're an entrepreneur, we look at your business. If you're messaging me and you're like, oh my gosh, clients are not paying all this, then in those WhatsApp sessions on those weekdays, that's coaching sessions that are happening. I'm asking you questions. Tell me about your payment system. What is happening? Who do you like? What is happening? Why are you out of money in the business? All of that. We're looking at it from all angles, right? And that's where the shifts are happening. Because what most of us tend to do is we just stay in our bubble, right? And we stay with the emotions. And so it's hard because we are our own echo chambers, or we talk to our friends, but there is no work that is getting done to shift us, right? To say, here's what needs to be done emotionally so that we get out of freeze mode or flight mode or whatever other mode we're in, so that we can take action and take constructive action and try to change the situation, right? So the focus of the coaching, right, is really to get you to align your financial goals with your personal values. But it goes even further than that. It's about aligning your financial goals with your current actions that you are taking on a daily basis. Because remember, you have access to me on a daily basis. So we're focusing on one goal, and then we're going after it and keep aligning our actions with our values and our goals. And to be able to confidently price your offerings without fear of judgment, right? So if you know that you're holding yourself back and you're struggling to price correctly, and you just have fear of showing up or all of those things, then this will definitely help you with that, right? And it's also about just breaking unhealthy money patterns and building a healthy relationship with money. So that is one of the major focuses. And of course, I hope after today's class, you understand the importance of how embracing your brilliance and your shine unapologetically absolutely impacts your income, right? Because so many of us are hiding, and we don't want to say, oh my gosh, I'm so incredible. This is what I do. Sign up with me. This is my pricing. This is how I can help you break through. And we are basically not able to monetize our skills or make the money that we want to make for ourselves, right? Oh man, I can't believe I didn't change it again this week. Sorry, I just copied and pasted this particular slide section, right? So your investment, I charge $10,000, which is 176,464 Rand to coach with me. So this is what you pay upfront to work with me for 4 months, right? And to, in those 4 months, to work the way that I've described, right? There is a discounted price, so you do save $2,000 upfront if you pay the full price upfront, right? So you save $2,000 or 35,293 Rand upfront if you pay the full payment. I do have a payment plan, right? So people pay over 4 months. It's a monthly payment plan. It's a flexible payment option, right? So you pay $3,000 a month for 4 months at the beginning, before we start at the beginning of every session every month. And that equates to 52,939 Rand for 4 months, right? Per month for 4 months. So most of my clients like the full upfront option because they get that discounted price, right? And like I said, a lot of when you do coaching, my clients come to me because they want that access. They want to be able to shift things at a faster rate, and they are just done trying to do it themselves. They see that it's taking longer and there's a cost to doing things at the pace that they've been doing it. And they realize that speeding up the process also benefits them, right? So how you get in touch with me is you can type in the comment section, in the chat box, hey Van, reach out to me. I want to know more about the coaching. Let's have a discovery call. So we have a discovery call around the coaching, or connect with me on the Wealthy Money Facebook page, connect with me on Instagram, DM me, or simply just email me. So since you guys are here, you've definitely registered for the class, right? So just click reply to the email and let's have a conversation. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for showing up. Do you guys have any questions before I end today's session? I have to prepare for an early morning flight tomorrow. And so I want to go to sleep early. Okay. That's it. Thank you so much for showing up, guys. I will see you next week, Thursday, right? We were doing Wednesday this week. Thanks, Sheena. You said you shared the book with your book club, Love and Light. Thank you. So I have we'll be back to next week, Thursday. But this Thursday, it's just because at 6 p.m. tomorrow, I am doing a corporate speech, right? So I can't show up. So that's the only reason why we did Wednesday today. Have a fantastic